this just sort of
Sorry about
hold
that.
on.
Yeah. Let me record it just so, because we have some people who miss it. I like to send them the recording. Yeah, I would prefer interactive, but sometimes it's very difficult to get these. I mean, to be quite honest, some people are more engaged. Not that they're not listening or paying attention, but it's maybe they're shy. I don't know. So if last week,
whatever.
So if they want to jump in,
if people want to chime in, 100%. So I'll leave that to you, but that's always better than just sort of me droning on. But I'm sure you'll help with some direction too. Sure. So but I mean, I think what I would get across in the context of you having a classroom that's looking at sports agent stuff. For me, I'm a local New York guy. The way that I got into the business, I always tell the story because I feel like it's there's some good lessons in it. And you and I talked a while ago about this kid who was in my hometown in Roslyn, George Beeman, and great kid. A young gentleman. And he was playing at my high school in Roslyn. And I wasn't in the business yet. I was just like like you and me, we're just fans and fantasy players and but I went to see this guy and he was so amazing. And basically what I did was I tapped into a network of friends of mine, coaches in the neighborhood, guys at Hofstra, David Duke, Pecora, those guys, brought George over. Long story short, he ended up getting a scholarship at Manhattan and playing for Barry Rorson up there. And he was a guy I remember meeting. I'm sure Tom Konchalski, who just passed recently, who's the famous Long Island and New York scout, high school scout. And Tom told me, said, George is like a D3 guy. And I wasn't in the business, but I knew he was wrong just from my eye, just the eye test. I said, no, Tom, so long story short, George gets a scholarship at Manhattan, goes on to score 2,000 points, lead them to the NCAA tournament. And it's a great story because I tell it because George, you never know who's watching. Here's George playing in high school. And obviously this applies to, not just basketball, but there's a lesson here, which is George is playing. I'm this guy from the neighborhood who played, football at Roslyn High School, who now lives back here. And I see the guy and I really take a liking to him and I help him get his scholarship. Right. And it changed the course for George, and I fell in love with the process of just helping him, using my experience of sales and marketing to get multiple offers to where Manhattan and Slice were like, no, we better make the call on George, because he had these amazing workouts and everybody could see at that point that he was a D1 player, right? So that was my foray into the business and how I started to meet people. The back end of that story is that, hey, Dave, sorry, I had to just drop a call. You got me now?
I got you. We're good.
Okay. The back end of that story is that the Rubinsteins, who were, in town, big investor people, friends of mine from Roslyn High School. I went to Roslyn High School with Brian Rubenstein. They heard about what I did for George. And they called me and they said, that's just such an amazing thing that you did. It wasn't about money or anything, but you helped this young guy. And by the way, we just took an investment stake in Basketball City, which at the time was on the west side of Manhattan. And they were moving over to a brand new, 100,000 square foot spot in Lower Manhattan. And they said, did you ever think about doing this for real, getting other athletes and becoming an agent? Yeah. And I was like, are you kidding me? And we have Basketball City to use to do that. So that was the genesis of how I got in the business. And I think it's a great story. And I think it's just something that it tells you, again, you never know who's watching. You don't do everything for money. We all have to make money and make a living, but it shouldn't always be about that. It could be about doing the right thing and helping people. And, listen, that's the approach that we've taken with the agency. And I think it always comes around because we've developed a really good reputation of helping guys and giving them, honest feedback. We've also developed that, parlaying on what I did for George, scouting is super important. So you got to find guys and you have to deliver value to the teams that you're calling on. You have to continuously get them good talent. And that's like any other business. You have to add value to the stakeholders, right? And I think that's just kind of the baseline of where we started from, and maybe a good place to jump off on this call.
Okay. So it sounds to me like the total experience, and obviously, look, we just saw it today, and hopefully these guys know, I mean, I'm a Mets fan. That's not why I bring it up, but Scott Boras is probably the top agent in Major League Baseball, and he has a ton of clients. And Max Scherzer, who I think had been on record as saying he wouldn't want to play for the Mets, is now a Met, and I think we all know why. And it's one word, and the word is what, guys? What am I looking for?
Money.
It's about money. It's about money. And here's the interesting thing, and not to deviate from this conversation, but he's a union rep. And at the end of the day, if he turned down the biggest offer, especially being a Boras agent, that was going to set a bad precedent. And he was basically forced into going to the Mets. So again, hopefully you're following along with that. But BJ, back to you. Tell us. It seems to me like you're the charitable part, the giving back is a big part of what you have to offer. How do you work with your clients in that area?
Well, it's a good question. I do think it just sort of, it's like any other company. There's a culture. There's, obviously I founded the company with the Rubinsteins, and probably starting there. I mean, they're incredibly philanthropic people. I mean, they've done stuff all over the world. And we kind of just took that approach with our athletes, in terms of how we approach the business. Like I said, a lot of agents I find are not willing to give the tough, honest feedback in fear of losing the client, right? And I just took the approach of a long-term view. We're not going to get certain guys. We're going to level with certain guys that they're going to the G League. And is this a charity per se? Is this answering your question directly? Maybe not. But the point is, the best thing you could do is be honest with these guys, right? And tell them where they really are in the market, because most of them growing up, they're told what they want to hear and not what they need to hear. And a lot of times guys are shocked. Like I'm talking to you. This is how I talk to the athletes. Dude, you're going to the G League. It's a fact of life. It doesn't mean you're not going to play in the NBA, but look at what's going on. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. Even lottery picks are playing in the G League right now. So you're a late second round maybe guy, a summer league guy. That's how they have you. Whether you think you're better than everybody else or not, that's where you are, right? So that's the first thing. I think is just being honest with the guys. And then as far as like, how does that really manifest? We'll help guys set up. Definitely, one of the things we talk about longer term is the opportunity that the guys have to have an impact in the community and how they want to do that. And so there's any number of creative ways where guys can think about, how do they build their social, their brand, but how do they leverage that to help, positively impact the community? And so that's a conversation that we have with every athlete. And some guys are more engaged in that than others, and some guys sort of pick it up as they go along. It becomes more important. But, if we're not sort of giving back, I mean, it sounds corny, but it's really true. Like I got, people looked out for me, helped me get in the business, gave me a huge opportunity. So like when you reach out and you're like, do you want to do an hour? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because who's ever out there listening, if they hear something that helps them in their career or, helps them figure something out, then that's a good thing. And who knows if it comes up, say, hey, yeah, I know BJ, RBA Sports. He came on and did a nice thing with Dave and whatever. Who knows how it might come back to me, but that's how I look at things.
Oh, wait, so you're saying I don't have to send this nice big fat check I got for you?
Now, now, keep it. Keep it.
So, all right, but it seems to me, based on how you started as an agent, which was interesting in and of itself, that finding somebody kind of underneath the radar, that your talents really kind of transcend to a lot towards scouting or identifying, talent that maybe isn't major, maybe not Zion Williamson, but maybe a guy who's good at a mid-major, maybe not NBA, but D League and maybe or G League, and you develop and you help develop these guys.
There's no question. I apologize. There's a fire truck or an ambulance or something. Perfect
It's Long
example,
Island. I
right? And
expect
this
that,
is
man.
no, you know what, man? It's sometimes they go by here. So this year we have a kid named Terry Taylor, and Dave, I don't know if you followed this kid, but he's an amazing, he was an amazing college player, just finished at Austin P, right? Two-time Ohio Valley Conference Player of the Year, dominated his conference. He's a 6'5" kid, but he's an incredible offensive rebounder, and he dominated in the paint in the Ohio Valley. But there's a lot more to his game. He can stretch the floor. He can shoot it. He's a versatile defender. He has the. If you really scouted Terry, you would know that he has the hands and feet to be an NBA wing. But they didn't see that.
Yeah.
So that's the value. That's the value that we add, is we bridge the gap, and it helps Terry get into summer league, get a deal with the Pacers. Now, he's in with the Pacers G League, but I spoke to the Chad Buchanan today. Terry's going to get called up. Terry's going to get on a two. Yeah, he's going to get a two-way. I mean, he's crushing the G League right now, which it's actually better that the Pacers, he was like one of the last cuts of training camp, right?
Yep.
After the preseason. And it worked out better in the long run that he spent a couple weeks in the G League, because he's getting 10 offensive rebounds a game in the G League, which is just, it's off the chart. And if it was on the end of the Pacers bench this last month and he didn't play at all, Carlisle's not going to play him yet. And who knows, nobody would know what he is, right? So it answers your question in the way that, like, Terry was a mid-major guy that we felt fit perfectly in with us. A guy that needed a mouthpiece, somebody with credibility around the league, like you said, who has built a reputation based around scouting. And that's what Terry needed in order to get the platform that he's in now. And, Terry's going to make it, because the one thing about the G League, and I think we talked about Norvell last year with the Knicks and how he got called up. He was the best shot blocker in the G League. He said, who's the best rim protector in the G League? Norvell Pell. That's what we need. You go get him. If you're trying to come up from the G League, you have to be great at one thing. And they're not looking for you to come up unless you're just a dead-eye shooter. They're going to put you in the corner. You're going to get to shoot threes. But you're not going to be getting called up to take over an NBA game, right? You're going to get 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't screw something up. Be efficient and get out of there. You have to be great at one thing so that they know, okay, we're going to put Terry in for 5 minutes. We know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to hit the offensive glass. They're not going to be able to handle him for 5 minutes. He's going to be an energy motor guy, and boom, he's back to the bench. Over time, you get to prove that you can do all these other things, but you need to be great at that one thing, and in order to get in. And I think Terry's a perfect example of how you have to scout, how you have to find the right fit, right? Like the kids are picking a college, like what's the makeup of the roster? Where do they fit in? What position? Who are they competing with there? It's the same thing with an agency. And for us picking a client, like it has to be a good fit on both sides. And I think Terry's a perfect example.
AJ, how big is your agency now? I mean, are you pretty much doing it yourself, or you have a bunch of people with you now?
We got a really good group. I added an amazing young guy a few years ago, Cam Brennick, who's a Hofstra kid, and going through legal and getting passing the bar and all that.
Nice.
He's he's an amazing young agent. He approached me at a Hofstra game, and he became a summer intern, and he's parlayed that into now we're Cam is really the reason we got Terry. Cam recruited Terry, and he got Corey Sanders from Rutgers, who was a big time player, and a handful of other really good local guys. So Cam's done an amazing job of helping build out the talent. And I would say right now we have about 30 guys that are, officially signed.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could have 100, but in order to do the job the right way and really hit all the different teams, especially on the NBA side, if, some guys just get a guy they call one team and they make a match, and it's, not with the guys we have. We have to work all 30 teams, all the NBA guys, G League guys. It's a job. It's a serious job. So in order to have 3, 4, 5 guys that we're cultivating in the NBA and have 25 guys in Europe, it takes up a lot of time.
BJ, you and guys, feel free to jump in. I mean, put your hand up or just jump in. But I mean, you mentioned something very briefly before, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind touching on that. I'm sure they've heard of this, and maybe some other agents have discussed this, but I can't recall the two-way deal. How does that work? The two-way contract.
So a two-way contract is essentially what the NBA did is they created, in addition to the 15-man roster, they added 2 spots, 16 and 17. And those are two-way contracts. And the way they work is basically that if you sign a two-way, the NBA team, that particular team, will maintain your rights, even if they put you in the G League. So they can shuttle you back and forth, okay? But when you go to the G League, you're still the property of the parent club, okay? And if you get a two-way and you're playing some games in the NBA, you're typically going to make more money that way, but again, you're locked in with that particular club, right? If you max out the two-way, in other words, you're there for the whole duration, I think this year you could do about 500 grand. Okay. The other contract that guys like Terry and the one that Terry signed is called an Exhibit 10. So you're either looking at a two-way or an Exhibit 10. A two-way locks you in. An Exhibit 10 is a little bit different. It basically says you go to training camp, you sign an NBA deal with the parent club, but they're going to waive you. And when they waive you, you get a $50K bonus if you go to the G League. But the thing with the Exhibit 10 is that if you go to the G League, anybody can call you up. So the two-way locks you in, gets you a little bit more money. The Exhibit 10 is less money, but gives you a lot more flexibility to negotiate and get picked up somewhere else after you play in the G League. Now, the way I look at it, and I'll wrap with this. The two-way we did with Norvell in Philly was the right kind of two-way. And the reason I say that is because Norvell probably deserved at that point a full guarantee. But we didn't have another hand to play against Elton Brand at the time. We didn't have another offer in our hands. So Elton said to me, listen, B, take the two-way. I'm going to guarantee you he's going to get the full amount. So it's 500 grand, whatever it was. This was Norvell's first year in Philly, 2 years ago. And we're going to play him because Embiid's out every other game, every third game, this and that. So A, you're going to get the full money. B, we're going to play him. And if he plays well, then I'm going to convert him from a two-way into the full contract. I'm going to waive Jonah Bolden or whoever, but I need you to trust me on this. And Elton was a man of his word. And we looked at it and we said, listen, two-way, he's getting the same money because he's going to be there for that duration. Then he's going to get bumped up. All I need is a chance on the court. If I get Norvell on an NBA court and he can show that he in fact led the league in block percentage and blocks per 36, right? He wasn't consistently in the rotation with Brett Brown, but he showed what he was, and that's all we needed. So that's the right kind of two-way. If you take a two-way just to take it and you don't have those assurances and guarantees, it might not make the most sense to lock your guy into one spot. Did all that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully. It's a good explanation, and obviously, you got to know all the ins and outs. Just two more things for me, and then I'd like the class to chime in if you guys have some. But you also represent, obviously, with FIBA, and I apologize for typing FIFA to the class. You're probably wondering why does he do soccer and basketball? But I mean, so FIBA obviously.
No soccer yet. Although the big
soccer.
Money's in soccer, man.
All
Big
right,
money.
Okay, well, but I want to talk about that too for a sec. But what's the difference? I mean, in terms of all the registration, all the things you need to do to do both.
You want to be certified in the NBA in order to operate in the NBA. And that is governed under the NBA Players Association, right? So they represent the players, and the agents are sort of part of that network. And so we pay dues every year to the NBA Players Association because that governs the relationship between the players and the agents. And then in parallel, you are supposed to be certified, as we are, by FIBA and pay an annual fee to FIBA to govern all of the European market transactions. It's really the wild, wild west. A lot of people they operate without FIBA license, and some clubs make an issue of them and some don't, and if it ever got to a court or whatever, like it'd be a problem, but that's just how some people do business. Gotcha. So technically you're supposed to have it, and they're actually changing a lot of rules. It's really a crazy time in the business because on the one hand here, you have all this NIL and NFT stuff. And I don't know how much you guys, if you talked about this with the class, but like, it's the Wild West in college. Like college kids are allowed to have agents now, so it's like, that's a huge dynamic that's changed. And, for the marketing stuff. And on the international side, they're coming up with all these crazy rules that are really, they're really limiting the protection. Like as it is on the NBA side, you could basically be fired on an instant. Like an NBA player can fire an NBA agent like that. Okay. Yeah. And which sucks. I mean, you invest a ton of time, and now there's other agreements. There could be a monetary agreement if you've laid out money or whatever, and it needs to be paid back. There could be a marketing agreement that, may still exist in parallel, but as far as like player representation to the teams, that could be terminated at will. And FIBA, until lately, has kind of left that alone, but they're trying to get more to the NBA side now, where they're trying to regulate that players can leave at will, and it's going to make the market an absolute mess. It's going to be, I'm telling you, I don't know if it actually will come to fruition because it's so stupid. And again, there's no protection for the agent. You're going to have multiple agents trying to pitch the same guy to multiple teams. Teams are not going to know who to deal with. It's, agents are going to cry foul left and right that their rights are being violated. So it's a whole mess over there right now, but
are they
technically that's what you're supposed to do.
Are they trying to connect for money purposes? I would just have to assume that. Do you know why? Why they're trying to get money?
Let me understand the question. And what's your name, by the way?
My name is Mayan. I just didn't want you to go into something else, so I kind of interrupted you. I'm
Hi,
sorry.
no, thank you. Good to meet you.
Hi.
So let me understand your question.
Yeah, I wanted to know, why is FIBA trying to be more engaged with the NBA? Do you know why, the reasoning?
Well, it's a good question. It's a global game. I mean, obviously you have the Olympics and the World Cups and all that. I think that there's just sort of, there's synergy where you have all the European players coming over to play in the NBA. The international tournaments want the NBA players going over there to play. So there's like a natural relationship there. What I was referring to specifically was the contract regulations, where FIBA is trying to become more like the NBA in terms of giving the players complete freedom. So if you and I sign a contract, a 1-year contract, right? That's typically a FIBA contract is 2 years. So I'll sign a player, and let's say the first year we put the player in the G League. We typically don't even make money because the G League salary is so low. We don't even take a fee a lot of times. So we're making a decision that we know is in the best interest of the player for the long term, right? So we sign a 2-year agreement with the player, knowing that we won't even start to make money until the second year. Okay. What FIBA is now saying is you can't do that. You can't even sign a 1-year deal. They're trying to make it like a 30-day cutoff, which it's terrible for the agents because you invest so much time and money in helping a player get the job, and then somebody else could just swoop in, like a vulture could swoop in and steal the deal, and you have no recourse. So it probably, when it's challenged in court and it goes through all the different process, it probably won't even stick. But the point I'm trying to make is that FIBA is trying to get even tighter with their rules, just like the NBA. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Now, what I do, since we're here, I had 2 questions as well. The Rubinsons were the original people involved with Basketball City on the West Side before you got there, right? I just wanted to know who they were.
No, so the guy that founded Basketball City, his name is Bruce Radler, Radler, and Bruce is now running the spot over on the Lower East Side. Basically, the Rubinsteins are Roslyn people. Barry, the father, is like a chairman at Northwell Health, and very, very, very good guy, very successful guy. Like I said, huge charity guys. And they made an investment in Basketball City so they basically invested in Bruce when he was on the West Side, when he wanted to move to the Lower East Side. They funded that. And then they got an ownership stake in Basketball City. And that's when they came to me and said, hey, we heard what you did with George. What if we put some money up and start an agency together? So RBA Sports is Rubenstein, Bass, and Associates.
Got it. And the second question was, your showcases, was that always a thing? I know you guys do showcases, and then I wanted to know if guests were allowed to come.
First of all, absolutely. I'd love to have you there. And last year we didn't do it because this craziness that we're all dealing with. Basketball City was closed, and the city was like just craziness. So we didn't have it last year. But the showcase was actually, and thank you so much for that question, because it's a great one. And it's one of the fundamental pieces of the agency. After I helped George, we did a combine at Manhattan College. Slice let us use the gym. And that's where we didn't know what we were doing. We just, like, people heard we were getting in the business. I don't even remember how we got players there, but like word got out that we were starting an agency, and a lot of great players around New York City showed up at this combine that we called it at the time, which eventually became the RBA Showcase. But we did it at Dratty Gym in Riverdale, And that's where we got Vernon Goodridge and Karan Clark and a couple of our first clients that were like amazing local guys that, like Dave, like you said, they were under the radar guys that needed a push. And like, so we just saw, and the one guy that did come, I give him credit. There was a guy named Chris Alpert, and he's actually scouting for the Kings right now in Sacramento. But he was like the director of the G League at the time. And he came to that event and he liked a couple guys. And that was the idea. We were like, hey, if we could bring in players, local players, and bring in some scouts, like get them into NBA Summer League, get them, we know they're not going to jump straight to the NBA from Dratty, but if that could be the first step in the process, and the showcase grew to the point where, like, you know, I think prior to last year, we had 5 or 6 kids get NBA Summer League invites out of it. Like, it's been a great tool for us to help these guys get a platform, basically.
Okay, so now how do guests get there now? That's the second part.
Well, we'll make sure Dave knows. We'll pass along all the info. But like, if any of you want to follow this, you can check my Twitter. We put out stuff all the time. So like, we'll put out times and dates and you know, leading up to the event. We'll make sure you know where it's at.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
For these
Good meeting you.
showcases, is this where you get a lot of your clients from, or are you doing a lot of scouting outside of the showcases as well, and like inviting those kids to come to the showcase, or like how does it work?
Hi, great question. What's your name?
Heather.
Hey, Heather. So it's a great question. No, we scout constantly. We scout, we go to college games, we watch college. But we're not just looking for college guys. We're, you know, we can sign guys that are in the NBA. We can sign guys that are already playing in Europe. And honestly, we pick our spots with college guys because it is, you do have a huge investment of time. That's their first time being put in front of the NBA. So it's a huge investment of time. Whereas a guy who's already established, it's less time to bring them on as clients, and they're already sort of in the, you know, in a more profitable scenario, right? So we're not only scouting college, we're scouting the G League, we're scouting all over. We've done, to answer your question directly, we've done an event or two. We did something really cool. I don't know if anybody's seen on the Golf Channel, they do the show, The Big Break. And it's basically like, in fact, Tony Finau, Dave, I don't know if you're a golf guy, but Tony Finau won the show, The Big Break, and he got on the PGA Tour as a result of that. And now he's like multiple time winner, Ryder Cupper. We did a similar type event at Basketball City called like RBA's Big Break. And the idea of that was that we were going to sign somebody. We were bringing in prospects and we were going to identify a client or two. The showcase is guys that are already signed, that are clients of ours that, you know, we're looking to put in front of NBA people. So I hope that answered your question, Heather.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Braden. I was just wondering, as far as like growing your connections in the game or relationships with GMs and coaches, I know Europe is like a complex world in basketball. What were some of the most successful actions you've taken in your career to grow those relationships?
Great question, Braden. I think the best way I can answer it is you just got to go do it. Like my first year, I went to Portsmouth, Virginia, which is where they have the, you know, the college seniors tournament. After the college season ends, the top 64 seniors go down to Portsmouth, Virginia, and play in front of the NBA. There's a huge NBA scouting crowd there, huge European scouting crowd there. So you go to Portsmouth, you go to NBA Summer League in Vegas. Obviously, first you have to sign a client or two, so you have, you know, something that you're selling, right? But and you know what? I shouldn't even say that, because when I started, I just went and introduced myself and said, hey, we're starting this agency. We're working out of Basketball City. We're going to be, you know, getting a lot of players coming through there and just sort of planting the seed. And then when we sign Vernon, I think that is the biggest deal. Like, you have to have talent. If you have talent, then people, you know, word gets around, hey, this guy's getting multiple workouts. This guy's got multiple summer league invites, whatever it is. And then the NBA team starts saying, shit, I got to see this guy, you know, like, or else I'm missing. And once you could bubble guys up to where they're legitimate NBA prospects, then the teams in Europe are going to be like, okay, who are the guys right below the NBA that might not make it? And those are the guys that we have to keep on our radar. So you have to do the work. You have to get out and meet people, and you have to have talent. And then if you continuously get talent and, you know, continue to go like this, then people will keep taking your calls.
I had a question. Hello, BJ. How are you?
Good. Where am I looking here? Let's see if I can find you. Who do we got?
Your name, please.
Sorry, yeah, my name's Tyrell. 1 second, I just wanted
Hey,
to update
Tyrell.
my name. Sorry about that. Like, my phone doesn't update my name. My question for you was, like, I didn't hear this part, but how do you protect your players? Kind of
There you
came in
go,
like when you were speaking on the contracts and just being totally honest with them. I love that. So as for somebody that possibly might be a sports agent but doesn't want to make my client upset, how would you like protect them?
So let me make sure I understand your question. You're asking me like, how am we being honest without hurting their feelings? I mean, what is that? What's the real question?
How do you protect your players and yourself?
How do I protect us in terms of, and I just want to drill down so make sure I give you a good
Yeah.
answer. How do I protect us in terms of what? From a legal perspective, from a expectational perspective? Oh,
All the
yeah,
above,
okay.
legal,
Well,
expectation, financial.
great question. So obviously there's a contractual piece. If a player is going to sign with a team, there's an NBA contract. Overseas, there's a a player team contract. So you have to make sure that there's certain mechanisms in place that players going to get paid on time. If they don't get paid on time, you have certain recourse that you can take, penalties that you can apply to the club, financial penalties, flexibility to get out of the contract, right? So that's the protection from a legal perspective, that making sure the player is getting what you've negotiated, right? I think from a financial perspective, what we've done is we've partnered with Morgan Stanley, and they have a really great group that's focused on athletes and high net worth guys, and they've done an incredible job with our guys. And they've taken a handful of our guys that are not in the NBA yet, that are building towards it, and they've helped them really start to establish their brokerage accounts and getting in the market and learning how to budget a piece of every check and investing that in the market. So that's the financial piece that we've brought to the table. And then I think, from just sort of setting expectations, like I mentioned initially with Dave, to me, that's a big piece of like, see, I look at it like this. Let's say you're selling your house and you're going to hire a broker, right? And you're going to sell your house. You're going to bring in a couple of brokers. You're going to ask them, what's the house worth? Okay. If this broker, who knows the neighborhood, who knows the other comps in the neighborhood, says your house is worth $500,000, and I could sell it, we're going to list it for 510, we're going to list it for 520, whatever, but you're going to get $500,000 for this house. If the client thinks the house is worth $1 million, even though there's no basis for that, that's not a relationship that's ever going to happen, right? Like, there's no reason for that person to hire the agent, and there's no reason for that agent to take the listing, because there's no meeting of the minds, right? So to me, that's a huge piece of the puzzle in terms of you're asking me, how do you protect the client? I have those conversations up front. Here's the pathway. Here's what you're going to have to do. You, like I said before, you may have to go through the G League. Here's what it's going to look like. I think setting the expectation up front about what the realistic scenario is for the player, that's protection. That's the best thing you could do, is tell them the truth up front. So I hope I gave you a little bit of flavor there, but that's, I hope answered your question.
Definitely did. Thank you.
I
You're
have another
welcome.
question. So when you say like you have a really good kid who's got multiple agents going for him, what sets you apart and what makes like them want to sign with you?
Great question. Now I feel like I'm on a sales call. I got a pitch here. I got a pitch, Dave. No, it's a great question. I appreciate it. It's and honestly, if I was the parent of one of these kids, it's what I would ask. I think with us, we have a track record. When I say, hey, we've developed a brand and a reputation on taking guys that are below the NBA radar, helping them with the platform through our showcase at Basketball City, through the G League. We've done it so many times, and it's a repeatable process, and it's been a successful process. So I could sit here and BS you guys, but you'll go online. There's receipts everywhere. All you have to do, and listen, most people that are serious, they're doing their due diligence before we even jump on the call. So they know our track record. They've talked to people in the industry. They've talked to other players, maybe other clients of ours. They've talked to coaches, college coaches, say, nah, BJ is a guy you can trust, and he's going to tell you the truth, right? So to me, that's first and foremost. You have to be, and especially now, like we're doing this over Zoom. This is how we were recruiting last year. Like, I'm a guy that likes to sit down at lunch and, have a lemonade and, sit down and hang with people and get to know people. And last year we did everything over Zoom. So it becomes really impersonal. So people have to do their homework before we even get on the call. And I think the most important stuff for us is we're New York guys. We have unique access and opportunities that come up at Basketball City, on the marketing side, on the training side, the ability that guys can go during the summer to Basketball City and run up and down with other NBA players. Like, that's a big piece for us. And so those are some of the key differentiators, I would say, in the niche that we've carved, and then the approach that we take with our clients.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Yeah, it was a good question. And thank you guys for the questions. Good job tonight with that. And we do have a few more minutes here with BJ. Just want to circle back to something you said earlier, because I want to get your opinion on it. Your opinion, your thoughts on it, and also if you're involved with it, and that's NIL, obviously. You want to talk about Wild West, you talked about FIBA in the Wild West. This is really the Wild West. So what are your thoughts, and how do you react to this new world?
So it's a great question. So part of what we've done with the showcase is also bring in brands and like Dr. Dish, and I try to incorporate sports tech. I try to bring in brand partners that can add value to the clients. And so we've done that as part of the showcase. Dr. Dish being one example. They've become the market leader in the shooting gun. I mean, they have this incredible technology and an iPhone app, and it's really the other one was called The Gun, and they've really passed those guys, and they've done a great job with marketing and sales. And so Dr. Dish is a good example of somebody that we partnered with and did a lot of content with around the showcase, but they're a perfect NIL partner for guys that are in college now. So we're talking to them about doing different marketing campaigns and getting them engaged with guys. that are in school now. And we're sort of brokering that relationship. And then the upside for us is we get to develop, business partnerships and relationships with all these college guys. Not that you couldn't do that before. I mean, there's a misnomer that agents weren't allowed to talk to college guys. Like, that's not true at all. You could always talk to players. You just technically were not allowed to sign them to a representation agreement because that would forfeit their eligibility. But you could always develop relationships with them and their parents and all that. But this is a channel now where we can do it officially. And so, yeah, we're all over it. I think you have to be. I think if you're not starting to cultivate these relationships now while the guys are in school, then you're just going to miss out and lose out to the competition.
Brock, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Brock. So I feel like the NIL deals have kind of helped prevent this. Also, sorry for the music. I'm at work right now. But I feel like the NIL deals have kind of helped prevent this. But I really thought LaMelo, whenever he went to Lithuania, he was really going to start a trend of, instead of going the NCAA route, going overseas, making money. And then, as you saw, he was still able to come back to the NBA. And I think he was a top 3 overall draft pick. For guys like that, do you get into, like, do you scout any guys that way, as far as the guys that start off overseas as opposed to the typical more college route?
Absolutely, Brock. It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, why not? They went pro, so they can sign an agent. The thing that LaMelo did, he went to Australia, and that league has really become tightly integrated with the NBA. Australia NBL has done a great job of building up that league, and you see a lot of guys from Australia come into the NBA and then they go back, and it's just become very, very prominent. So LaMelo went to a very stable place. And in fact, I think he's like a part owner now or he bought the whole team, the Hawks team that he was on in Australia. But there's a lot of other places in Europe like that are not as stable, and that you probably wouldn't, have the same kind of experience in terms of NBA exposure, NBA scouting. Like, NBA scouts Australia like crazy. And there's a lot of prospects there and a lot of guys that are, summer league, top of the G League. They go to NBA Australia and then they go from there into the NBA. So it's a great question. You also have the competing, like, now you have like the G League Ignite, they did their high school team, and you have Overtime that had, put their team together. So you have all these different competing factors. And then obviously college. I mean, you have like what LaMelo did and what, the G League Ignite and Overtime and these other leagues, like, they're competing with the NCAA now. So the NCAA was almost, their hand was forced into this NIL piece, because otherwise everybody would be going to G League Ignite and trying to get paid. And so I think that's how that dynamic came about. But it's a great question. And yeah, we have our eyes on everybody, even the ones that go overseas as a first year guy looking to come back.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Jacqueline,
you're welcome, bud.
Jacqueline, you sent me a question. Would you mind asking it? Because it was a good question.
Yeah, sure. Hi, BJ. My name is Jacqueline. My question is on 3-on-3 basketball and the development of that. Obviously, it's great. I mean, I personally think it's great. What do you see? Do you think that that's going to continue to grow? And how do you think sports agents will kind of deal with that? Do you think like a league will come from it, and just kind of your overall opinion on it?
It's a great question. I mean, obviously there's an appetite for it. If you look at the Big 3 piece that Ice Cube did, and I mean, they got a TV deal out of it. I mean, so, and then even like the NCAA did their college, at the Final Four, they have that 3-on-3 piece up there. It's definitely, listen, there's there's a huge market for the game, and it's consumed in all kinds of different ways now through digital and all kinds of other ways. And so I think the answer to your question is absolutely it has legs. And I think that as that business continues to grow, then you're gonna start to see agents and listen, the bigger the pizza pie, I mean, people want to get involved, and they'll maybe take some of their time that they're dedicating to the NBA and dedicate it here if there's a return on investment.
It's actually an interesting question. Oh, so Xavier, you have a question here. What's something just saw like last on here? So before I read Xavier's question, let me just jump in, because we asked our previous speaker the same question. So it seems like everybody kind of compartmentalizes their industry, or agents. Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I could do this for baseball guys, or I could do this for football guys, or I could do this for hockey guys, or is that just too convoluted? What keeps people from doing that?
No, I think, listen, the big agencies are doing multiple sports. I mean, I think there's no reason. Look, I get down to where we're at in our company's life cycle. We're better right now, just focused and trying to be really good at basketball and developing our niche. And I've worked with guys, I've partnered with guys that work on the NFL stuff. There are athletes that do both, right? So like, you always want to be networked, and there are different guys I work with on the NFL stuff. And so, could we do that at some point? Could we do, golf at one point, if that's what we decide we want to do? Like, yeah, I mean, there's, it's how much time do you have? Where do you want to dedicate your bandwidth and your resources? Where do you get a return on investment? But like, I love golf. I mean, I love one day to, be able to do some of that. But again, what's the timing? How much, do I take away from what I'm doing now? But there's always athletes. I mean, the sport's always going to be here. The process is always going to be here, right? There's always going to be young athletes that need representation and need help and promotion and marketing. So, I think it's just a question of like where your passion is and what you're able to execute.
Sounds to me like you spend a lot of your spare time at Bethpage golf course.
I used to. I definitely used to. I'm not good enough to play that. That black course, man. I don't know if anybody here has played that black course, but my game is not there right now.
All right, well, that's good. Then maybe you and I can go out, because I think I'm ready for the yellow course, whatever the hell that might be. But
yeah, or the red. The red is a nice course too. It's just man, that black course is really tough.
I know. No, it's tough. Yeah. Before we let BJ go, any last questions for BJ? And certainly appreciate his time here.
You're welcome, Dave.
And listen, here's the most important question of the night. All right. So your puppy that drove you out of the house and into the yard, what kind of a dog is it? What's its name?
Well, she's a Cavapoo, and she just turned 1 actually on Thanksgiving. Her name is Ruby, and I tell you, man, I never thought I would be a dog guy. My younger daughter really wanted a dog, and so we finally got her a dog, and like, I never thought I would do it, but I'm so smitten and in love with this, this little puppy. And now she sleeps in our bed. She sleeps right between me and my wife. So like, it's a huge, I think people don't understand. I mean, if you have a dog, you know what I'm saying, but like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because it's like having another child. I mean, she's into anything. You got to keep an eye on her constantly,
I hear you. Well, good luck with that, BJ. Listen, I do owe you a lunch and a lemonade of your choice, and let's do that sometime sooner rather than later, because I do have some other things I'd like to share with you on the business side. So I'll be in touch with that. But thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
Dave. Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome,
coming.
guys. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you.
Stay well.
Take care, Dave.
So if you guys want to just hang for a second, I don't know if anybody jumped off here, but I'll send an email tomorrow just following up. So if you are, or if you feel you are caught up with this work, and there's been a lot of different things, and I realize that. So there's going to be no assignments for like I did last week, or, maybe I'll put something on the discussion board if you want to share your thoughts, but I want you guys to catch up and concentrate on either the stuff you owe me, from the semester or your final projects, whatever, for the next 2 weeks. And then next week we will have a speaker, and his name is Andy Miller. Now, who can tell me who Andy Miller is?
The agent from the scheme.
Who said that?
I did.
I was gonna say that.
There you go. All right, well, you didn't. He beat you to it. So there you go. All right. If you watch the scheme, Andy Miller was the guy, really the guy they were after, right? And I have to tell you something. Andy Miller has been to campus at least twice and wanted to teach this class, and he's a great guy. I think he's a smart guy. He's a great businessman. And by the way, people make mistakes. That's what we do. Okay, we make mistakes. So, but we're going to hear from Andy next week, and I'm really excited about that because not only, did he, obviously lose everything, he's rebuilt his whole career. He's got a great business and he's doing well. So we're going to hear from Andy next week. And if you want to send questions beforehand, that's fine too. But I thought it worked out well tonight. I thought you guys did a good job, and I appreciate it. All right. So no assignment. I'll put it up in the discussion board. Just find it. I'll post the video too in case somebody wants to watch it or if somebody didn't make it. And then that's it. Any questions for me?
Yes, can I stay back? I have a question.
Okay. You
After, because I
you
want
want me to
to.
stay down? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, sure. I'm happy to. All right. Hope you guys all had a nice Thanksgiving, and see you later.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
DJ.
All right.
Thank you.
Be well.
Get off my, good night, people. Goodbye.
All right.
All right, so
Okay. Wait. Let me just stop
recording.
recording.